Hey guys, it's Vandy as the Vanguard Card Vanguard deck professor. Because enjoyed, don't like, comment, subscribe, sorry. This time we are covering another deck from DZ set 10 with it being Dark States, Baphormedes. I'm surprised I'm even doing this deck profile, especially because Baphormedes itself is a promo grade 3. But in this set, Baphormedes got a random named support card. Might as well do a deck profile on it, and it gives me a chance to upgrade this deck again and see what it can do. So I like the start shower because honestly it's a very interesting build. First up we have our energy generator, so it's our ride deck crest. You remember our deck is in your ride deck. Auto ride deck, when you ride, place a card to your crest zone. If you want second energy charge 3, continuous with 10 energy, I'll be in red face and charge 3, then actions return energy by 7, draw a card. Arm pretty solid, you get a free 3 energy every turn. If you win second, you get an extra 3 on top of that. Not to mention the fact that once you end up having 7 or more energy, you can blast 7 of it to draw a card. In this deck, we have with our new support card, we have a card that costs 3 energy, so you'll never be using that energy blast 7, but it's a very solid support card to have to help increase the hand if you can afford it. Moving on to our starter, we have Desire Devil Tida. Grades a boost, 5k shield, 6k base. Auto room party for second, draw a card. Standard starter and if you go second. It makes any start you want to make a Tida because it can make people think you're playing greed on, and this deck doesn't really have an actual red line, so might as well throw off your opponent. Moving on, we have our Overt Trigger and Hades Dragon Deity of Resentment Gamaga held. Grades a boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Overt Trigger in your deck, or invoke it at a trigger move that card, draw a card, choose over, give a +1 million for the turn. And if you saw it during your draft check, activate the addition effect, which you, the player, you get during your turn. All your vanguards get +1 dozen power, +1 critical to the end of the fight. All is a pretty powerful ability because it lasts throughout the entirety of the game once you do draft check. So if you draft check this on turn 1, you're automatically going to be getting a +10k power, +1 critical to your vanguard every single turn, which is pretty good for all-around defensive pressure. If you want, you can make it vulnerable for consistent multi-attacking, or as for recycling and crit pressure, or even Noxer for the Dark Over Trigger for a superior call pressure and healing, which I would argue you either pick Gamaga Hell, Volna, or Nafaxior, but you pick whichever Over Trigger works best for you. I chose Gamaga Hell because I like running the Nation Over Triggers, and that constant 10k and crit pressure I love. Moving on to our normal triggers, we have a total of 7 crit, 3 of them being Flinty Slasher, grades of boost, 15k shield, 5k power. You make this any vanilla crit you want, just to make it Flinty Slasher because it was the closest crit I could find at the time that I built this deck. And then 4 copies of Stem Deviated Dragon, grades of boost, 15k shield, 4k power. Auto rear guard, that's about a booster shot with a soul, choose you and give it 2k for the turn. Make this a vanilla crit. The reason why this is Stem Deviate is because at the time that I made this deck, I completely forgot to change out Stem Deviate, but make this a vanilla critical has nothing in this deck Soul Blast, meaning you have no reason to send this to Soul, and it'd rather be a 5k base crit because in case you do have to call it to rear guard, that 5k base will make a difference compared to the 4k. So a total of 7 crit for overall offensive pressure and 4 draws for guard power, which is Rouse My Rouse Riley. Grades of boost, 5k shield, 4k base, draw against guard circle, punch vanguards a grade 3 grade at 5,000 to her shield. So you know she's 10k shield, not to mention the fact that she helps you draw cards, which is a deck that has a bunch of grade 3s in it, is very important. Now in Bastion, which is basically the Kyoto Sanctuary version of this deck, you would run front triggers for offensive pressure. The reason why you don't do that here is because in this deck you focus up on using up your rear guards for the cost. Therefore the front trigger, while what would be appreciated, isn't necessarily needed, and in my opinion you'd rather have the draws to help refill your hand from sending your rear guards that you call from hand to soul, but also so that you have extra guard power to go into it. But take that as you will, whatever I want to do with the trigger lineup, but again I recommend 7 vanilla crits and then 4 draws. Then we have 4 heals and Steam Scar and Monaga heal, so grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k base. Make any heal you want just to make it Neagle because it's the heal that I randomly grabbed when I got Flinty Satchel. Take that as you will. Moving on to our grade 1s, we have 4 copies of Exaggerate Draco Kid. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, continues rear guard, guard circle, or the soul. If your vanguard's a grade 3 grade, it gets +2 grade. So in the soul, it's counted as a grade 3 and on the rear guard as well, which is very important because Baphormedes sends any grade 3 from rear guard to soul. Not to mention the fact that it wants grade 3s in soul, so increasing our chance of pulling that skill off is amazing. But also auto and place on rear guard circle. If your soul has any grade 3 in it, you may soul charge 1. And if your grade 3 was soul charged by this effect, you choose a grade from your drop zone and put it to soul. Again, very powerful ability because it's a May soul charge. So if you don't want to soul charge because you're afraid of either soul charging a trigger or or decking yourself out, you don't have to soul charge. But once you get a grade 3 in your soul, whether you're at grade 3 or not, because you know you could possibly send a grade 3 to soul off of Deep Sonic over here, you can then proceed to get an extra additional soul charge. And if you end up putting a grade 3, well, all your grade 3s that you discard for ride deck, you can automatically put into soul, which increases the chance of Baphormedes going its full effect off on your first grade 3 turn. So all around, very solid grade 1 to have in the deck. Get you soul for free and possibly can get you 2 soul in one shot, and itself counts as a grade 3 as long as your vanguard's a grade 3, so solid 4 for me. Moving on to 4 copies of our PG and Repelled Malice Dragon. Grade 1 boost, 0 silk, 6k base, continues Central 4 sentinels in deck on spelling guard circle. Choose one of these that cannot be hit on the back for hands 2 more cards to come from hand discarded. Standard PG, nothing to specify. This means if this is one more cards that hand place on the guard circle, you don't have to go great because that means be super aggressive in the early game. Basically spam out the lever living hell and have Exaggerate Draco Kid, and then when your opponent does eventually counterattack you, put on Repelled Malice Dragon, give them a middle finger, you're good to go. All around, very solid PG to have in your deck, especially in a deck that has a lot of grade 3, so you want to be able to have a card that pretty much stops any attack when your opponent's hitting you with high numbers. But you know, you can make this card Riskill Hate Dragon or Ridicule Disruptor as well because Repel Mouse Dragon has the same skill as them. I was supposed to make it Repel Mouse though because it came out close to the time of Baphormedes release. Moving on to our last grade 1 in the deck, one of in the ride deck, none in the main deck of Deep Sonicer. Grade 1 boost 5k shield, 8k base, auto 1 place on Vanguard Circle, soul charge 1, and then change rear guard circle during turn if your soul has 10 or more cards, and it gets 10 as powerful. So this card can be called from Soul. There is a card in the deck that calls from Soul. Will you ever call Deep Sonic from Soul? No, but if you do end up doing it, it'll be an 18k base most of the time, because again, this deck has no Soul Blasters, and you're pretty much always sending at least 2 cards to Soul every single turn, so more likely than not, he's going to hit 18k at some point or another. He's mainly here for his on-place ability, which is a free Soul Charge, which unfortunately there's no grade 1 in Dark States generically that can easily grab a grade 3 into Soul, so being able to possibly RNG one into your Soul, a card that eventually becomes a grade 3 into your Soul via that effect, is pretty decent. And again, this is Dark States and it has a card in here that can superior call from Soul, so worst case scenario, if you end up sending like a really good call target into Soul, it's not the end of the world. Plus this thing is good in Soul anyways because it's a grade 3. And then again, that 10k base, you know, if you call from Soul, probably an 18k. So not a bad one to have in the right deck and in the main deck. You don't need it in the main deck because again, you can pull it off from Soul, and you'd rather fill up your deck with cards that either act as grade 3s or actual grade 3s themselves. Moving on to our grade 2s, 4 copies of Steam Shooter Kandalanu, grade 2 instead 5k shield, 10k base. I love how he has just a giant clock in the background. Continuous rear guard, guard circle, or soul, so the exact same skills exaggerate, except name specific. If you have a grade 3 grade of Vanguard Baphormedes in the card name, he gets +1 grade and 5,000 power after both his turns, which means a 15k base grade 3 during both players' turns, and he is the sole reason why this deck is getting a deck profile. So thank you to him if you guys love Baphormedes. And then auto, when this unit is put from rear guard circle into the soul by the ability of your grade 3 grade of Vanguard or Baphormedes in the card name, actually doesn't have to be grade 3 grade, it can be any Baphormedes. So if they make a ride line of Baphormedes that all have Baphormedes in the card name, will proc off the ability. Choose up to 1 grade 3 card from your drop zone, put it to soul, then Energy Blast 3, draw a card, choose up to 1 card, unit card from your hand, call it to an open rear guard circle, and choose one of your backward grade 3 units the same column as it and stand it. So important things to know. When it goes to soul for free, it pulls any grade 3 into your soul from drop zone, which is good. But then if you want to pay the cost of Energy Blast 3, you can draw a card, so pretty much your energy generator, but cheaper. Then you can superior call a unit to the circle he was on, and then you get to stand the unit behind it, basically meaning you get a column restand, which is Baphormedes' biggest problem, because before, since Baphormedes' skill is on attack, you want to swing with a rear guard column first and swing with your Vanguard, and while the Vanguard had the ability to restrict your opponent's guard power, you wouldn't be able to get any extra attacks, which means you'd be only stuck with 3 attacks that turn, and only one of them has guard restrict. Well, in this case, not only one of them has guard restrict, but now for only 3 energy, you get a total of 4 attacks, with one of them being a column restand. So not a bad grade 2 at all to have in the deck. Acts as a grade 3 both on rear guard and in soul and on guard circle once your Vanguard is a Baphormedes, which is very important for, you know, Baphormedes' skill being able to increase all grade 3 shield by 5,000 power. Not to mention the fact the same goes for Exaggerate Joker Kid over here. And it also initiates multi-attacking for at least 3 energy, and not to mention the fact it pulls any grade 3 from drop zone to soul just by it simply being sent to soul via Baphormedes, making it a solid 4th to have in the deck for both offensive and consistency pressure. Moving on, we have our last grade 2 in the deck, because we only need that 1 grade 2 in the main deck. One of in the right deck, none in the main deck of Diabolos, Anger Richard. Grade 2 instead 5k shield, 10k base, auto placed on Vanguard circle, yeet a rear guard to soul to draw a card, and continues rear guard if you're in final rush against 5,000 power. That second ability will never go off, because even though it can superior call from soul, it can't use final rush, so we ignore that part. We focus on the part that yeets a card to soul to draw a card, which is very solid, because the intended purpose is you call Exaggerate, and then Exaggerate, hopefully you get a grade 3 off of Deep Sonic card, then you call Exaggerate, Exaggerate gets you a soul charge, and then you ride into Richard, who then yeets Exaggerate into soul, and then you draw a card. Realistically, you're only going to get the second half of that combo off, but still being able to send a grade 3 from rear guard into soul before you even hit grade 3 is pretty solid, and then replacing it with a draw, therefore setting you up for Baphormedes. Basically, mulligan for an Exaggerate Joker Kid in your draw, even if you're not going to pull a grade 3 in your soul via Deep Sonic card. So very solid grade 2 to have as a 1 of in the right deck, and obviously you don't need in the main deck, because again, it is callable, but you're never going to be in final rush anyways. Moving on to our grade 3s, starting off with our beautiful Regalia Piece, because might as well run a card that can yeet itself to soul and again increase Baphormedes' consistency. 1 Radiance Caliburn. So Regalia Piece, you may only have 1 Regalia Piece in your deck, and you can only use a total of 1 time per fight. And when you do play, it's a normal order. You play from one of the following 2. You either draw 2 cards, which is helpful for again a deck that only has grade 3, so it helps you either get rear guard recursion or it helps you get defense power, or you put it to soul and countercharge 1. Again, preferably you put it to soul, because this deck does have a lot of CB cards, and you put it to soul, therefore getting you another grade 3 card in your soul and then recurring your CB. But if you use it to draw 2 cards, not the end of the world, but again, the preferred skill is the second one. Either way, very solid card to have. If you want to make this twin cast for more defensive power, you very much can. I choose to make it Caliburn because again, grade 3 consistency and resource consistency as well. Moving on to our normal unit grade 3s. 3 of Time Gyrate Dragon, grade 3 10% 30k base. Auto plus on rear guard from your hand, yeet a card from your hand to the soul to draw a card. So this whole point of this deck is to pull up Baphormedes' full effect on the first grade 3 turn preferably, hence why we have a lot of soul chargers and just cards that, you know, can put cards into soul inherently before you hit the battle phase. So Time Gyrate being able to forcefully send a grade 3 into soul to help increase your hand is good, and because it's an on place, this is a card you can constantly afford to send to soul via Baphormedes' ability and not feel too bad about it, and it can be placed from anywhere, meaning it can proc off via Marosalva's superior call skill, aka the card I keep talking about when we can call from soul. Not a bad grade 3 to have in the deck. It is a little bit generic and is a card that came back all the way out in the first set of D, but it still has a decent place in the deck being able to get hand cards to soul, so 3 for me. Moving on, we have 4 copies of Splendid Ball Play Right Tree. So grade 3 to 9% 13k base. You can change rear guard or guard circle. If your damage has former cards and it gets 10,000 shield and 10,000 power after bonus turns. So if your opponent hits you really hard or just in general hits you because you know you're playing a deck of grade 3 so you can't guard very easily, well, Baphormedes gives every grade 3 in your deck plus 5k shield, so every grade 3 is the equivalent of a grade 1. But Right Tree over here, increasing its shield to 15k once you do hit 4 more damage is good because that means you have extra defense power, and if you want to call him to board, well, he's a 23k swinger. Not a bad grade 3 at all. Again, preferably you want to have him in hand for extra defense power because that's a 15k shield right there. But if you want to end up just calling him to rear guard as a 23k beat stick, you can do that too. Therefore, it functions both well for offense and defense, and was why I want as a 4 of. Then we have 4 copies of Reaper in the Shadows Zailmort. Grade 3 to 9%, 13k base. Act rear guard, CB1, and put it into your soul. To check the top 2 cards of your deck, shield to one of them, call it to rear guard circle, and put the rest into your soul. So you don't have to call a card if you don't want to. If both of them are grade 3s and you really want to send them to soul to help turbo out Baphormedes, you can. But guaranteedly, one of them goes into soul, and the other one can go to rear guard circle, which hopefully it's a powerful grade 3 unit, such as Rachel over here or Time Gyro, who can hopefully draw you into a Miroslava, just so you can pressure out your rear guard support. Or if you end up pulling a second Zailmort, just call a second Zailmort and do the skill again. And again, this gets you more grade 3s in soul to hopefully pull out Baphormedes' full skill on your first grade 3 turn while your opponent's at grade 2. Very solid grade 3 to have in the deck. Gets you 2 to 3 soul in a single turn. Not to mention the fact that they can possibly get you rear guards as well. So very solid 4 for me. Then we have 4 copies of Heat, Haze, Acrobat, Miroslava. So considering the fact the whole point of this deck is to send a bunch of cards from rear guard into soul, obviously we want to have ways to either call those cards out or mitigate the fact that we're losing our rear guards constantly, and Miroslava is our way to do that. So grade 3 to 9% 13k base. Auto when placed on rear guard circle from the hand during your main phase. Unfortunately, those are the 2 worst restrictions in the world. It has to be placed from hand, so you can't pull it off of Zailmort. And while this could pull it off, unfortunately you have to play it during the main phase, so it doesn't work. Counter Blast 1, choose a card from your soul with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard. Put the chosen card to your hand if it's the same card name as your Vanguard, or call it to rear guard if it isn't. So either add a Persona right to your hand or just straight up call a card. And if you put a card into your hand, she gets 5,000 power for the turn. So if you add a Persona right, she's an 18k. If you didn't add a Persona right, you just got an extra rear guard. All around, very solid, great to have in the deck. It gets you more rear guard recursion because it pulls a grade 3 out from soul. That means it basically gives you Baphormedes fodder. Hopefully it doesn't screw you over out of the boost skill, which is the whole reason that this deck has a lot of grade 3s in the first place. So that way you can aggro your opponent down really quickly, then put the grade 3s right back into soul and then activate your Baphormedes to full effect, making it a very solid grade 3 to have, being able to pull rear guards out from soul and allow you to aggro your opponent down a little bit more consistently, making her a good 4 for me. Then we have 4 copies of Causality Dragon Crucial Dragon. This is my first time running this card, and to be honest with you, I've wanted to run it for so long because it looks so cool, and I've kind of been waiting to upgrade my Baphormedes deck just so I could run this, because the last time I built Baphormedes, I forgot it existed and then I didn't put it in there, and I kind of regret that decision. So yeah, I'm glad I can finally put him in here. So grade 3 to 9% 13k base. Contains rear guard or guard circle. If your opponent's drive check or damage check revealed to trigger this turn, it gets 10,000 power and 10,000 shield as well, making it a 10k shield or 15k shield when you're on Baphormedes, and on top of that, a 23k beat stick during your turn if your opponent pulled a damage trigger, which is pretty solid for overall aggressive and defensive pressure. And then auto rear guard once per turn when this unit attacks into a Vanguard while not boosted specifically, put another rear guard in the same column as it into your soul. So it does benefit from having a bunch of grade 3s on board, though it does take away from Baphormedes' skill. And then perform all the following: choose on your opponent's rear guards, kill it, and it gets 5,000 power for the turn, and then remove an Overt Trigger from your drop zone, and your opponent cannot call grade 1s or greater from hand to guard circle to end of battle. All around pretty solid, because it can just, for simply setting a rear guard to soul, murk an opponent's rear guard, and then make itself a 28k swinger if your opponent pulled a defensive trigger, which is solid. And if you do remove the Overt Trigger, well, it shuts down your opponent's PGs and higher, and then during the next battle, Baphormedes is going to force out 3 cards anyways, so pretty solid that you can guard restrict your opponent through that and make it really hard for them to defend during the next 2 attacks. The only downside is that it does take up a grade 3 from the same combo, so you have to call something behind Baphormedes to try to build your board around it, but still not a bad combo to have, Causality Dragon being a very solid grade 3 to have in the deck. My only issue with this deck is that you have 2 really good grade 3s that have really great guarding power, and I wish they had intercept, or Baphormedes had the ability to give them intercept, but unfortunately he doesn't. But hey, if they ever upgrade Baphormedes, I'm just saying that's what you could do with this deck. I could see Baphormedes getting a grade 4 and having that skill where it gives them intercept. I think that would be a really cool function, but 4 of Crucial Dragon, just a very solid grade 3 to have in the deck. And it's also a really cool art. And then finally, 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the red deck, of our main grade 3 who has a beautiful pink moon in the background, Demonic Lord of Hades Blaze, Baphormedes. Grade 3 to 9% 13k base, aka Dark State's Bastion. Auto Vanguard, when it attacks into a Vanguard, put 2 grade 3 rear guards into your soul, draw a card, and this unit gets 10,000 power until end of the battle for every 3 grade 3s in your soul. All around very solid, because, you know, with this deck, you're going to hit a lot of grade 3s into soul. I mean, you have what? 4, 8, 12, 16, plus another 4, so 20, plus another 8, so 28, plus another 3, 31. Like, odds are you're going to have grade 3s in your soul for that skill, which basically means he's going to get a lot of power really quickly. And again, this happens against your opponent's grade 2 Vanguard, and you get to draw to replace at least one of the cards you're setting to soul. And then continuous Vanguard, this unit gets all the following according to the number of grade 3s in your soul. If you have 3 or more, every single grade 3 unit you have gets an extra 5,000 shielded boost. I wish I gave them this as well, but I digress from my point. Being able to give all of these guys boost is incredible, because that means you can be super aggressive, and if your opponent is dumb enough to put you to 4 damage while they're on grade 2 and you have the first grade 3 turn, well, suddenly this mofo is a 23k on his own with possibly this mofo boosting, and if your opponent pulled a trigger, well, that's a 46k column right there. Good luck, dude. And then not to mention that, again, 5k shield, so those two are both 15k shields if the conditions are met. And then 6 or more grade 3s in soul. For the battle of this unit attack, when your opponent will call cards to hand to guard, some of them is called 3 or more at the same time. That is why we run 7 crits, so that we can hopefully push our opponent to higher damage early, or so that they either have to risk taking a Vanguard attack that could kill them, or they just drop their entire hand trying to block Baphormedes because they PG it. They still got to drop 2 additional cards plus the card they discard for PG. Our Baphormedes making a very solid, consistent, and offensive grade 3. When it first came out, it kind of sucked because there wasn't a lot of generically good grade 3s for Dark States, and while there still aren't a lot, they have a lot more defensive power, and now with his 2 support cards, one of which initiates multi-attack and the other one giving you basically free soul, it's all pretty solid. The best part is that ability is not tied to the on-attack skill, meaning when it sends stuff to soul, you can, in between the opponent guarding and you activating this first skill, you can use Kandalanu to at least send a grade 3 to soul, and if you don't use the Energy Blast 3 skill, that's fine, because you're still having an extra grade 3 in soul, which could possibly trigger the 6 or more grade 3 skill. All around, very solid ability to have. 23k base, pretty much bare minimum every single time it swings, with a free draw, and just pushing out your opponent with either extra guard power, but also being able to have boost on your side of the field and forcing out 3 or more cards every single time he attacks. The only thing this deck is missing from being good is a way to give your grade 3s intercept, and also a restanding Vanguard. But you know, if they ever give a grade 4, I feel like Bushy would never give this deck like an actual new grade 3. That's why I keep specifying grade 4. I feel like that's something Bushy would do, where it would have to be a new grade 4. But I would 100% take a new grade 3, because it would make sense, but Bushy does Bushy sometimes and doesn't do the right thing. But either way, being able to do all the defensive ability but also have aggressive ability makes it a very solid grade 3 to have in the deck, so 3 in the main deck, 1 in the right deck. And without further ado, that's it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed. Honestly, when this deck first came out, I did not have high hopes for this, and I didn't really care about it that much, but ever since DZ came around, and DZ like brought back a lot of decks from the brink of death, I think they did a really good job with giving it support, and this time around I think they did a really good job of giving it support, and now I'm just waiting for either them to get a generic ride line, or not even that, just give Darkseid's a few more generic grade 3s, and honestly this deck has a freaking fire under its belt, and if they ever upgrade Baphormedes to give grade 3s intercept, God forbid, I can see this deck doing really well. So without further ado, I'm going to someone here. I hope all of you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join us for Twitch. I'll see you all in the next one. Throw up your Vanguards.